Hi, everyone. Welcome. You're early. Thanks for showing up early. We're going to give everyone about 60 more seconds, and then we're going to get started.
Yeah, it looks like the numbers just jumped up here a little bit.
Great. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Wednesday. We've got folks joining from BC, from Ontario. Love to see it across the country. Hey, fantastic. Let's get started. It is 9 a.m. Pacific and noon Eastern on the dot. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Thriving in Tough Times, How Strong HR Benefits and Finance Practices Drive Team Engagement. We're really excited. This session has been designed for you with jam-packed actionable insights. We're going to present for about 35 minutes, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So if anything comes up as we're speaking, as we're going through, write it down. We want to make sure that you walk away with some really actionable ideas that you can then use to implement in your business and make a change. We've got three awesome speakers. I'm very excited to introduce you to Dane Christianson, partner at Informa Financial, and Omar Visram, co-founder and CEO at Enkel, and myself. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Nicole Davidson. I'm the CEO and founder at BeaconHR. Let's jump right in. I'm going to talk about building a people-first culture with strong HR, and I'm going to show you how strong HR is not reactive. It's proactive, and it's the foundation for clarity, culture, and performance at every level of your organization. Before I jump in, a little bit about Beacon HR. We've offered HR consulting for growing businesses since 2017. And we love to be the team that jumps in and helps take that stress. We love to see stress melt off of leaders' shoulders. We love to partner with organizations to support a thriving company culture and ultimately be that powerful partner to drive your business and your organization's success. As we all know, as you all know, getting the right people in the right seats, then keeping them there is a top challenge that leaders face. I want to say it's the #1 challenge that leaders face, although Dane and Omar might fight me on that one. It's at least the top 3. And really what we want are fewer people-related headaches and less resources going into solving them. Next slide, please. People strategy matters now more than I would argue than it ever has. And really, if we want to survive, we have to link our people strategy to overall business goals and objectives. And we have to plan our workforce so that the business can adapt to change and thrive in uncertainty. We're in this perfect storm of uncertainty right now with everything going on in the world and in the markets. If we want to grow, if we want our businesses to thrive, we have to do three things. We have to attract and hire great employees. We have to keep those great employees. And then we have to train them. We have to give them a path for long-term growth. Strong HR means that you have less risk in your businesses. You have more profit. We all know that hiring mistakes and legal missteps can be super, super expensive. Small HR shifts mean massive ROI, and this is something that often gets overlooked. We often have organizations that we work with, for example, who are unsure if their benefits are doing what they want their benefits to be doing, supporting their team members in the right way, showing their team members that they care about them. We'll introduce them to Dane and his team. Often they'll take a quick look under the hood and they'll find some low-hanging fruit where there's immediate ROI. So small HR shifts can make that huge difference. Then strong HR means that you've got a really strong HR infrastructure that's going to reduce bottlenecks and burnouts. We recently helped a Vancouver-based company in the medical services space, and we saw that they were really struggling, super common, with engagement, with internal team communication, collaboration, with hiring, and they had huge bottlenecks in their processes. And since simplifying their processes, they've had a 180-degree change. Engagement is up. They've got no more communication issues. They've got smoother hiring and onboarding. So the really good news is that sometimes you don't have to make these big sweeping changes. You don't have to introduce crazy new tools, maybe outside of a little bit of fractional or expert support, but making small changes can really make a big impact. So, how do you know if you have strong HR? Well, here are 5 signs, and I'm going to send you a full HR health check doc so that you can do a self-assessment after this webinar. But here are 5 things. So, take a moment and think through if these exist in your organization. Strong HR looks like every team member knows what's expected of them and how they're doing. They've got crystal clear expectations. They can answer that great question: how do I know that I've had a successful week? Managers have hard conversations early and often. So your team bring up issues early instead of letting them fester. Managers are really confident giving feedback, coaching their teams, having those hard conversations. Recognition happens early. And then people feel a really strong sense of connection to your business through transparent communication and trust. And you'll see that thread of transparency and trust woven throughout all 3 of our talks today. And then, of course, your culture is intentionally designed and values are lived daily. So I want to share what's working and what's not right now. We work with hundreds of growing organizations, and these are the main themes, the main trends that we're seeing. We all know that lack of transparency doesn't work, but what does more transparency look like in your business? Well, what we're seeing is compensation, for example. A lot of organizations are struggling with salaries, trying to keep up, inflation, lots of other causes, and a lot of these organizations don't have more cash to give. So what we're seeing success look like is companies being more transparent with their state of the business and looking for other ways to reward their team members that are non-cash based. We're also seeing organizations do this well with more recognition, simple things like letting people know, letting your A players know that you appreciate them. And we're seeing this big shift in the last year from complex processes to simple processes. We know that everyone is strapped for time. Everyone's dealing with time constraints. A lot of teams are spread really thin. They may not have as many resources as they did 3 or 4 years ago. So we're seeing this move from complexity to simplicity. And the key question here is, where can you simplify and still be effective? If you have an employee engagement survey that's out of the box, that takes 20 minutes to complete, and the questions aren't actually relevant to your business, take a look at how you can customize that and make it really easy. Same thing with performance management. If your performance management process feels like a huge thing that takes 10 hours, nobody's going to do it. If it feels too frequent or if it feels like a checkbox exercise, look to see where you can iterate and where you can make a change. And then reactivity and burnout. So reactivity is not working. We're seeing a huge rise in mental health issues for employees, and we're really seeing that new manager training programs are working. Let's take a look at how this works in practice. So we recently worked with a company based in Delta, British Columbia. They're a global leader in the design manufacture of gas detectors of all things. And their challenge was one that's common to many of us. They got hiring wrong enough times that it just shook the confidence of their whole team, including leadership. The A hires that they did have were at risk of leaving, which led to chaos and a loss of confidence in the leadership. We all know that it's a huge waste of money and a draw on resources when you're all sitting in the room talking about the same performance issues, whether you want to let someone go. So this was super critical to business operations and to the company culture. It was really important that they got the next hires right. And it's interesting, what got them in that position wasn't that the process was totally wrong, but it's that each step along the way wasn't optimized. So it was the sum of each minor shortfall on each step that resulted in a potentially disastrous situation for the business. So here are some actionable interventions. And as I go through these, have a think to see if any of these might make sense for your business. Small changes that have a big impact. So things like stakeholder alignment, making sure that you have all key stakeholders in the room from day one. I can't tell you how many times we have supported a search and we're really excited about a final candidate, and then a new stakeholder gets introduced into the conversation at the last stage. That turns out they were looking for person A, whereas there's misalignment. It wastes time, it wastes money. Don't do it. Get everyone you need to in the room from day one. Make sure you're envisioning the same person. Here's a really commonly missed step is defining KPIs, because those A players want to know how success is going to be measured in their role on before day one, in the interview process, at the first conversation. So make sure that you know, once you have your job description, that's great, but make sure you also look at how success is going to be measured in that role. And those KPIs need to align to your overall business goals. And then clear targeting. You actually want to attract, now that you've got a crystal clear idea of who it is that you're looking for, you want to target fewer high quality applicants. So you don't want to boil the ocean. You want to create a really targeted job ad that's marketed to your ideal candidate, and giving candidates an opportunity to clearly see what is a day in the life going to be like, what is the culture, what are your values, and give them a chance to opt in and opt out. You don't want to have a whole bunch of wrong fit applicants applying to your roles. That's going to waste time and money. And then strong infrastructure, I've talked about a little bit. We don't want to see leaders hiring on gut, and thoughtful onboarding, another step that often gets missed. With this particular case, the results, I'm going to let you read through the results on the screen here, but the bottom line was confidence in hiring returned, resulting in less burnout for team members and greater board and investor confidence. A-team players that this company already had stayed, and the chaos ended. A players felt like they were in the right place, not on a sinking ship, and leadership and ownership got to spend less time talking about hiring and go back to what they do best, focusing on growth. Ultimately, mastering HR creates more freedom, profit, and peace of mind. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dane.
Thank you, Nicole. Hello, everyone here today. Nicole, always a wealth of knowledge. That was a wonderful way to start the webinar. Again, I'm Dane Christianson, partner at Informa Financial, and we've been servicing the Canadian marketplace for nearly 30 years. But my business partner, Cliff, doesn't usually point that out as he feels it ages him, but that is the nature of what we do. Our focus is on employee benefits, but more than that, we help employers align their benefit programs with what their teams actually value. The title of this section is Rebuilding Trust with Benefits, and the message I want to share is simple. Modern benefits aren't about offering more, they're about offering what matters most, clearly and intentionally. Now, let's start by exploring why engagement is slipping. Even among organizations offering objectively strong plans, we're seeing more and more that it's not just about what's offered, it's how it's perceived. So disengagement is rising across many workplaces, and it's not always for the reasons we might expect. It's not just burnout or inflation. A big part of the issue is how disconnected benefits can feel to employees. When employees don't see, understand, and ultimately connect with the benefits plan, they're likely tuning it out. Even if you're offering a robust plan, it can feel, for lack of a better term, irrelevant. And when benefits feel irrelevant, they become invisible. And it's that sort of disconnect that creates the impression of a company that really isn't paying attention. So let's look at these four core issues here. Again, disengagement itself is rising. People are stressed. There's inflation, burnout, morale issues that really no amount of massage dollars alone can fix, right? Secondly, traditional benefits can feel stuck. The design may have worked 5 years ago, but today's workforce needs more personalization and digitization, mental health access without having to jump through hoops, and easily accessible virtual care. Take this on. Only 38% of members feel their plan meets their current needs. That tells us something really important. Most benefit plans aren't outdated in theory, they're outdated in execution. Thirdly, employees are constantly assessing the company, not just based on policies, but based on how it feels to interact with them. I think it's fair to say that employees are always reading between the lines. They're picking up signals about how much their company values them. And one of the biggest signals is the benefits plan. If the plan feels out of touch, that sends a message. But when it feels intentional and clear, it reinforces trust. Only half of employees believe their employer cares about their well-being. This sentiment is often shaped by whether the benefits feel supportive or for show. And finally, there's the what I call the invisible benefits problem. If a benefit is hard to use, rarely discussed, or buried in a policy booklet, it might as well not exist. So the shift we're making here is moving from what do we offer to how do people experience what we offer, because perception drives engagement. If it doesn't land with the employee, it's as if it never happened. Now, the disconnect plays out pretty clearly in the data. On the right here, on the right in the chart, according to the 2024 Benefits Canada Healthcare Survey displayed here, understanding of plan continued coverage continues to decline. Only 47% of employees feel they understand their plan extremely or very well, down from 65% just 7 years ago. And barely 1 in 3 feel their plan supports their mental health. In a nutshell, this means your team might technically have the right support, but if they don't understand it, or if it's too complicated to access, it doesn't translate into value. Another shift we're seeing, sort of detailed here on the left in the bubble, is around how employees want to receive information. While email is still widely used, we're seeing increasing demand for digital and mobile formats. Things like smartphone apps, live chat, short explainer videos. The key takeaway here is that communication preferences are evolving fast, and benefits delivery needs to catch up. So it's not that plans don't exist, it's just that the clarity and access aren't there. And without that, even good coverage can fail to effectively build trust. Quick tip for existing staff and new hires, consider an easy to digest, high level 2-pager PDF that clearly lays out the benefits on page 1, and second page, how to access and utilize it. Lean on your broker for this. This is something that can absolutely help you with that will, again, drive better communication with what you're offering. Even well-designed plans can underperform if employees don't understand, access, or feel connected to what's being offered. Let's take a closer look at 3 major factors that commonly will undermine a benefit strategy. First, wasted benefits equals wasted budget. One of the biggest misconceptions we hear is that underuse equals savings. But a benefits plan that isn't understood or used isn't a cost-saving strategy. It's a wasted investment. You're paying for it either way. And if employees aren't using it, you're missing out on the return. That's loyalty, that's morale, retention, productivity. It's like paying for a gym membership you never use. The cost stays the same, but the value is essentially zero. Secondly, confusion kills perceived value. If employees don't know how to navigate their plan, if it's too complex or again buried in paperwork, they won't engage with it. And if they don't engage, they won't value it. That leads to benefits being treated as background noise instead of something that builds culture. And one size no longer fits all. We've got multi-generational teams, hybrid workforces, and employees with very different expectations. The idea that a single fixed plan will serve everyone equally is fairly outdated. I mean, flexibility, whether through HSAs, wellness accounts, or custom tiers, gives employees the ability to access what's relevant to them. Now, kind of similar to what Nicole did with one of her slides in particular, I've done the same here with respect to benefits. So before we jump into modern strategies, I invite you to think about your current plan. If these questions feel hard to answer, or if you're unsure, you're not alone, okay? Most employers are facing at least one of these gaps. If you score three or more no's, I think it's fair to say your plan may be underperforming, not because of coverage, but potentially because of clarity, access, communication. Now, I won't go through each question in detail here. We're going to send a follow-up resource email. I will include this in there with some other sort of nuggets built into it. What I'll say is this: if your team doesn't know what they have, they can't value it. And if they don't value it, they might not stay for it. Okay, so what have we done? We know that benefit costs are rising and that many companies are testing their budgets in this economy. So the question becomes, how do we evolve our strategy in a way that doesn't further stretch those budgets? That's kind of the key idea on this page. Let's explore some low cost but high value additions, ones that are smart, intentional add-ons that show genuine care. Virtual coaching can be a great tool. It doesn't have an effect on your claims and thus rates with the vast majority of EAP providers we work with. Providers like Inkblot offer easily accessible coaching, coaching for your health, career coaching, life transition coaching, and even legal advice. Or plug into your existing EAP for potentially pretty similar support. Caregiver support. With an aging population, more employees are juggling responsibilities for aging parents. Consider combining care navigation platforms like telehealth, which some of you might have, with flexible work supports like informal caregiver leave or work from home accommodations. And they can be positioned as part of your broader compensation strategy, which is exactly where a Beacon, for example, can really shine. A fractional HR team you can lean on to round out your total reward strategy. Financial wellness tools, huge one. Tools like budgeting platforms, debt support, one-on-one coaching. Many employees, like this is key, like many employees won't ask for help managing financial stress, but they might engage when resources are proactively offered in a confidential way. And then finally, preventive care subsidies, something as simple as a wellness subsidy covering fitness, nutritional counseling, health screenings. They encourage employees to take action before a problem turns into a claim. Now, these are all noteworthy plan additions, real and relevant support without blowing the benefits budget. Now, not detailed on your screen here, but I do want to shout out a couple unique and high impact partners we work with on the wellness front. One is Heal Wellness, HEAL, Vancouver-based provider offering virtual lunch and learns habit-based wellness challenges, an on-demand library covering mental health, nutrition, movement, easy to roll out, and a really strong offering for virtual teams. We've had some great sessions done for our clients through Heal. Advocate Health, pretty unique, a concierge-style healthcare navigation platform. It actually navigates the Canadian healthcare system for your employees. They help staff access faster medical care, second opinions, book diagnostics. This is a big one, even find a family doctor, which is so difficult. It's backed with the support of actual real nurse navigators. Great tool. Secondly, audit and remarket strategically. You'd be surprised, genuinely, you'd be surprised how many businesses are overpaying or stuck with outdated plan design simply because no one's reviewed it in like the last 3 to 5 years. Benchmarking isn't just about rates, it's about cost splits, contribution models, plan mix, staying competitive. We at Informa use a benchmarking platform that gives us access to market insights and plan comparisons. And an FYI, like we're going to be extending the access to that platform to each of you here today. I would love to be able to market your plan and see where it is from a strategic standpoint. Even without changing carriers, going to market can reset expectations and reveal opportunities. Just this is literally 2 days ago, after previously being unable to find a carrier to quote on our existing 100 employee Desjardins client, we got an offer with about a 20% rate reduction and rate caps on both the first and second renewals, which is a lot of stability going forward. When you get rate caps or guarantees without any fine print involved, that's real substance on a benefits plan. Thirdly, explore smarter funding models. If you're over about 50 staff and you haven't looked at or explored things like ASO dental, that's administrative services only, or advice to pay short-term disability, you might be leaving money on the table. These models offer more control, predictable cost, and the ability to invest in real value instead of just risk transfer to the insurance company. When paired with HSAs or wellness accounts, they allow for flexibility without driving premiums up. Okay, so we've talked about what's broken. I mean, confusion, underuse, mismatched value, and what to do about it. Now we're focused on how to make it all land. Concept here, communication is the new plan design. Communication isn't a one-time event. We need more frequent employee-focused touch points. Think things like semi-annual refreshes or quarterly reminders. Simplified guides and one-pagers, kind of like what I alluded to a few slides back. In-person or virtual lunch and learns. Again, something a broker can absolutely help you with. generally clear, jargon-free messaging. This is what we need to see. The more clarity you provide, the more value for staff. A well-communicated plan gets used more efficiently, reducing admin friction and confusion. And again, this is where companies like a Beacon, for example, can help. They can plug in as an extension to your people ops and existing HR team, an extension to your existing team to help implement this kind of consistent communication. And companies like Enkel, to tie it all together, can complement that by managing the operational side, payroll, reporting, day-to-day admin. This keeps your back office smooth so HR can stay strategic. And okay, so we've diagnosed the engagement issue, explored modern strategies, and highlighted how communication can make or break your plan's impact. Ultimately, what's really at stake here isn't just utilization or ROI on your benefits plan, it's trust. That's the idea here. The trust between you and your employees. Benefits are more than compensation. They communicate your values and your culture. They show whether you're reactive or intentional, whether you're checking a box or investing in your people. When benefits are clearly communicated, thoughtfully designed, and responsive to real life needs, they send a message. And when employees feel that, not just hear it in a meeting or see it in a slide deck, but experience it through how the plan actually works, benefits stop being an expense and they start becoming a loyalty strategy. And passing it now to our final speaker, Omar.
Thank you, Dane. That was very insightful. So I think everybody on the call can probably agree that the two hardest things in running any organization are people and money. So we've had a great overview on the people and benefits side. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about finance. But today I'm going to take it a little bit further than just talking about how to stay compliant and how to prevent risk in the organization. Increasingly, we're seeing finance being used as an engine to generate, to create, to foster trust. So let's talk about how you might be able to go about doing that. First of all, it's important before you start to think about using finance as a trust engine, about having a foundation that really works and will facilitate all of the great things that we're about to talk about. First of all, you must have a well-functioning process to get timely and accurate numbers. When you have those numbers, what does good look like? Well, first of all, financial statements are delivered to you after month end on a consistent date. If you don't have that service level agreement in place with your bookkeeper, your accountant today, I would strongly suggest starting there. Visibility on cash flow, avoiding big surprises. Also having a customized chart of accounts that tells the story of your business. At Enkel, when we start working with clients, we customize the chart of accounts so that we can best capture the information that is important to the stakeholders. Gross margin, marketing expenses, different things will matter to different businesses based on your industry and based on your objectives. Use your chart of accounts to map out those things. We've all heard this quote from Peter Drucker: what gets measured gets managed. And the foundation for that is ultimately your chart of accounts. And finally, having clear and clean accounts receivable and accounts payable. Understanding what is coming in, what is owed to you, and also what is going to go out and what the timing of that looks like. Once you have these building blocks in place, you are ready to get going. So using numbers, what does it mean and where do you start? Ultimately, there are different philosophies on the level of financial transparency. We have a lot of conversations about this. A lot of companies today are moving towards complete open book financials, and that's great. That really demonstrates a strong degree of transparency. In my view, what I've seen work best is that to build trust and engagement, you need to balance these priorities between sharing a lot and sharing the right information. Just because you have a complete set of open books doesn't necessarily mean you will achieve the objective. Keep in mind that most of the people on your team are actually not accountants. So if you just give them access to everything, they're probably not even going to look. Instead, what you need to do is share key metrics and align these metrics with organizational goals and objectives. that can encourage action, lead to celebration, or in tough times, bring clarity to where the problems are. So, how do you use your numbers to engage your team? What is the process? What are the important considerations? So first of all, as I mentioned on the previous slide, you want to simplify the story. Share the numbers in a clean and clear way in terms that are relatable. Again, keeping in mind that your people, most of them are not accountants. You want to connect what you're sharing to team goals. Show the team how their efforts directly impact financial outcomes. One thing that I've seen work really well here is using specific examples. Our gross margin improved by 2%, and this is why. This is what the team did in order to get it there. Third, and this is a really exciting one for me, is using visuals. So charts and dashboards to make it easier to grasp. This doesn't have to be intimidating. It is becoming more accessible. There are many tools today that will plug directly into QuickBooks Online or Xero or whatever your online accounting software might be, and will help you design the right visuals to support your story. Now, this is a really great way to be able to convey information in a clear and concise way using pie charts, graphs, and this technology will actually take you through the process of designing these in a way that is most understandable to your team. Share regularly. I would say share regularly and share consistently. Keep teams in the loop to build ownership and trust. If you have a monthly meeting, share the same numbers every month, whether they're good numbers or bad numbers. Consistency in how you share is really critical. And of course, celebrate wins. Highlight progress to keep momentum strong. But again, don't hide bad information. Sharing information, negative information, can even be quite empowering if you provide your team with an action plan for how you're going to how you and the team can turn those numbers around. I'm going to take you through a case study. I have changed the name of this just to protect client confidentiality. So we're referring to this client as Velvet Preserve. They make artisanal jams that pair with wine and spirits. They're sold through gourmet retailers across Canada. So when we started working with Velvet Preserve, gross margins were slipping. The team really lacked clarity on true product costs, pricing, strategy, and potentially production inefficiencies. So really what was happening is there was access to numbers, but it was just one basic gross margin number, and nobody could align on what the issues were. So what we did is we introduced reporting that broke down gross margin by product and channel, cost of goods sold, trends in cost of goods sold, the impact of packaging. We did a little bit of sensitivity analysis and put some visuals together on this. We also looked at ingredients and batch size. So ultimately, gross margin was a really important number, and it was just too high level to be meaningful the way it was being shared. The result was that gross margin actually improved over a 6-month period by 9%. Low margin SKUs were cut, many were repriced, and what the organization is now doing is weekly they're reviewing costs and aligning operations and finance teams. So what they realized is it wasn't just one group's problem. They needed finance to provide more insight, but the operations team together, there were many different stakeholders that were having an impact on the problem and ultimately an impact on the improvement. So on an ongoing basis, we now have Velvet Preserve meeting weekly to review costs. They continue to collaborate. Operations and finance are operating more as partners than they were before. So this is really the power of what you can do with numbers. Sometimes you need to go a little bit deeper. Sometimes you need visualizations, but it can really bring a lot of lack of clarity, a lot of misunderstanding. It can fix a lot of these problems to help organizations move forward. So let's talk a little bit about fractional financial operations services, how they work, and how they can ultimately help you. So first of all, what is it? Ultimately, it is outsourced support for bookkeeping, payroll, and financial reporting provided by a team instead of hiring in-house. And these are very importantly services that scale with your needs and with your budget. So we have many different clients of different sizes. Some start small and grow, others start with a full scope of service and evolve with us as their needs change. How it works, you ultimately have a dedicated team handling monthly tasks and deadlines. So there are a couple of people involved depending on the services that you engage your provider for. Technology does streamline workflows and improves accuracy. So one thing you can rely on is a service provider like Enkel really prides itself in the technology that it uses to make the client experience better, to improve efficiency in your back office. Many organizations, we've done this since about sort of mid-COVID, we launched this as a controllership and CFO service. So having the foundation in place, but then having people there to really help you use the numbers and ultimately tell the story. So the end result for you will be that you will remove person dependence. We see a lot of smaller organizations where there's one person who manages payroll, bookkeeping, works with the accountant at year end. What happens when that person gets sick or goes on vacation? It can be stressful and challenging for the individual and also for the organization. With these services, you can access experts with the right experience. So if you buy controllership services and payroll as an example, you get somebody that is trained on Canadian payroll legislation and a controller who has familiarity with similar businesses to yours. Ultimately, this will lead to better reporting, better controls, and for you, peace of mind. So just before I wrap up today, I just wanted to share that in many cases, you're not sure where to start. So this whole idea of unlocking financial clarity for leadership and for teams, where do you get going? So what we have is we have a one-time service that really helps you understand how to improve reporting internally, increase efficiency through technology, which is really the platform on which you can start to use numbers to create engagement and transparency. In this engagement, we will review your chart of accounts and reporting structure to support clear financial analysis and improve storytelling. We will evaluate your existing financial reports for consistency. So this ends up being a little bit of a health check on what are your books telling you, and helping you figure out what you need to do to build consistency, accuracy, and alignment with your business goals. We will provide recommendations on tools that can be used to improve efficiency in your accounting. Ultimately, what you get is you get a 2-page summary providing you with all of this insight and a 90-minute debrief meeting. It starts at just under $2,000. And if you do engage us for ongoing services, this will actually be credited to you. If you're interested in learning more, please contact me here. We will also send our contact information by email after this session. All right, so as we close things off and just before we jump into Q&A, I want to leave you really with this idea that finance isn't about managing costs. When done right, finance becomes a strategic ally to HR and benefits. It brings clarity, structure, and insights to the decisions that directly impact your people. Think about what we've discussed today. HR builds the foundation, the culture, trust, and engagement. Benefits reflect your values and how you care for your team. And finance makes all of it sustainable. It answers the critical questions. Can we afford this? What's working? Where should we invest next? When these three areas, that's HR, benefits, and finance, work together, you get more than just compliance and cost control. You get to build stronger, healthier organizations. You build an organization where communication is clear, people are supported and feel supported and make decisions. You ultimately get to make decisions that balance data and heart. So if you're asking yourself how to build a foundation for trust, or how to rebuild trust, retain talent, and drive meaningful performance, the answer doesn't live in just one of these functions. It's in the collaboration of all of them together. So thank you so much for your time. We're really excited to get to questions. Like I said, there will be a follow-up email that we will send with some useful information and our contact details. But let's jump into the questions now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's go here. So I guess I'll read the first question that I see here. And I think this one is really for Dane. At what team size do you recommend bringing on a robust health plan? If team members already have private health benefits and don't want to give them up, does that prevent a small company from accessing a plan for the other members? Example, 10 staff.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one I deal with quite often, especially if it's a perhaps an early stage startup or a company that's, quote unquote small enough to where they don't know when they should be rolling something out. If they're looking for something, and I'll use the word more robust, and they already have staff who I'm presuming have coverage through their spouse's plan. That's the way that's why I'm sort of taking away from this. So let's say you have 10 employees and 5 of them have health and dental through their spouse already. You have 5 that don't. Absolutely no problem in terms of being able to set something up. What you have is participation requirements with any benefits carrier. So if you have 10 staff, the insurance company is going to assume that they're all participating, irrespective of whether they already have health and dental. So the way that works is, yes, you can structure it for all 10, but any non-health and dental benefits like life insurance, which is dollars and cents benefits, that's a mandatory thing. So if you have someone come down for life insurance and they can opt out of the health and dental because they already have it, then you're getting full participation with your 10 employees. The ones who have health and dental can opt out, or if they want to double dip and have access to 2 plans, theirs and their spouses, they can absolutely do that. For the ones that don't have health and dental now, then they simply join, whatever your company is looking at setting up. So a very, very doable structure and something we see all the time.
Great. There's a few here. Another one for Nicole this time. How do you handle culture fit when you're growing fast and just need to fill roles quickly?
Good question. I think a lot of bad hiring decisions come from teams feeling spread too thin and feeling desperate. We've seen an interesting shift also. I think what happened a couple years ago is we stopped saying culture fit. We started saying culture add, because we don't actually want to build homogenous teams. Most companies, most leaders are really aware of bias in the hiring process. So I would encourage this company who's wanting to hire really fast to, yes, still definitely you want to consider culture, but think about what that means. And usually when we look at a recruitment process, we do want to understand your values. We want to understand who's going to be successful at the company and on a team level. We want to reverse engineer questions from that. I don't want to go on too many tangents here, but the key message would be try to not hire from a place of desperation. Try to figure out, if you need to add some firepower to your talent acquisition, you can hire freelance recruiters, you can hire a company like Beacon, but really try to get out of that reactive space and be more intentional, be more proactive when you're hiring, because if you do end up hiring someone who's not aligned with your culture, they're not going to be successful. You're going to spend all this time on money getting them ramped up and onboarded. 6 months in, they're going to realize, oh, this actually isn't what they were looking for. They're going to leave. You're going to be back to square one anyway.
Here's another one for Dane. How do we get a flexible health plan to serve employee purpose than a traditional fixed plan with benefits they never use?
We got a flexible plan to serve employees' purpose in a traditional fixed plan. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we were getting into here today. I mean, the thing
Yeah.
with benefit plans is, at the end of the day, a traditional sort of fixed benefit plan, which a lot of companies do have, and there's certainly still a place for them, as I got into with rate caps and rate guarantees when it's the right fit. But those are ultimately what drive claims. And from an employer perspective and people ops team, that drives to greater rates down the road, right? So some of the things I got into a little bit today, and I speak with on the regular with clients, is flex accounts, where you have a set budget or allocation that can go to the employee. They get the flexibility to spend those funds how they want on extended health, dental, vision care. Or, you know, you can also kind of the same side of that coin, lifestyle accounts, where it's simply a taxable benefit to the employee, but they have enough flexibility to pretty much spend those funds how they want, depending on how it's structured. But if they want to spend it on like groceries or pay pet insurance, I mean, that's the kind of thing you can use lifestyle spending accounts for. So, any way for a small business, especially, to find places where they can plug products and tools that allow the plan to be more flexible is huge. That's what everyone wants to see today. And I know a lot of plans don't have it, but if you're looking to sort of level up your plan, honestly, if you have a traditional plan that's set, one size fits all, find some ways to add on to it, take it to the next step where staff will get more flexibility and sort of view it in a different way than they are now, perhaps.
Dane, just to add to that, if you are new to, I mean, maybe you're not new, maybe you've had a traditional benefits plan. How do you help clients figure out what the right mix is, what the right balance is, how they achieve that flexibility objective?
Yeah, I mean, first off, like you only get so many analytics from the insurance company. So I can see from a business owner or people ops perspective how it could be difficult to know how the plan's being used in general. So I think one, I really try to dive into that information in terms of what's offered, and then we can zoom out and see like, okay, well, there's some changes we made to the plan 2, 3 years ago. They haven't really been picked up in the way we'd hoped. Okay, well, maybe we axe that and we go in a different direction. I think a lot of it is one, analytics, and then two, just working as closely as possible with the people that are helping put the benefits plan together and seeing what other options exist. Because if stuff's not getting used, it goes back to wasted benefits, wasted budget kind of idea. And I think that's where a good broker can step in and really sort of find a middle ground and offer more flexibility to the staff, which is generally what they want.
Great. There's one that I'm going to read out here. Would love to hear some specific finance charts or metrics Omar shares with his team. Love this idea. How or when do you show metrics on different departments where one might be doing better than another? How do you balance highlighting the win of one department without making others feel bad? So there's a lot in this question. I don't have charts to show you specifically. But there's a few visualizations that we've put together around gross margin by product, or in our case, by service. And we share those every month. So I think the answer to a lot of these questions is consistency. That's how we show that we're being objective. And of course, as leaders, if one group continues to show numbers that are, let's say, red, it's our responsibility to work with that team to help them improve. And so, like I was saying earlier, some of the value is not in, is it red or is it green? It's the plan of what we're going to do to move the needle and improve the number. How or when do you show metrics on different departments? Yeah. So that would be my high level answer to that question. Of course, there's a lot more in this. This is a really key part to consider when you are starting to use numbers to share them with your team. You can plug in, so use a tool, like I said, Fathom or Spotlight. We can help you get up and running with one. and just start playing around with it and use the same metrics, the same visualizations consistently, and see what the impact is. Okay, let's see. We have time for a couple more. Let's see on the HR front. Do you have this actually could apply to all of us. Do you have alternative practical ideas rather than a monthly company-wide all hands for keeping the company/teams informed? Nicole, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, great question. We have a couple clients who are doing a CEO memo, like a weekly or monthly video message from the CEO. I really love that idea, but of course you need to make sure it's on brand for you. And then also, I don't have the answer to this, but I just want to plant this seed. How could you use AI? How could you create a custom GPT that plugs in the information you want to share on a regular basis? I feel like there's probably some opportunity to do this in a really efficient way.
I still see a lot of value in the all hands to sort of tie back to overall company strategy. But one thing I like is that these are generally used as a platform for engagement rather than getting into a lot of nuanced specifics by function. The way that we do it is we do have the all hands, but then we have different functions meeting independently once a month. Like we have a monthly delivery update where we really get into the details around what went right, what went wrong in that function. So I think there's still a value in the all hands, but keep it as a tool for engagement more than anything. Okay. Let's see here. Do you have tips for helping managers get more comfortable having tough conversations early? This is clearly a Nicole question.
That is such a good question. I actually have Shar on my team is going to be presenting a session for our whole team on this, because what we're seeing that this is such a game changer. You can imagine that the biggest impact of your experience as an employee at your organization is your relationship with your manager. You go to them for questions, they give you feedback, they give you hard feedback, they might have a conversation with you around salary and compensation. So we're seeing that companies that are winning right now are investing in L&D programs for their managers and not just one-off hits. But what we're seeing really work is ongoing sessions that happen over the course of a year or over the course or over a period of time so that your new managers have a chance to practice. So all that to say, my boots on the ground, my experts are my team members. So I'd be happy to, whoever asked that question, I'd be more than happy to connect you with my team of HR experts to get back to you on that one specifically.
Okay, I really like this one, and it definitely impacts all three of us. What's your advice for getting leadership buy-in to invest in better HR benefits or reporting? I have a take on this on like investing in fractional services. We are huge believers, maybe because of the work that we do in hiring fractional for everything where we have the opportunity to do so that's not core to our business. But maybe Dane and Nicole, let's hear from you first before I bias the answer further.
Nicole, start this one off. I'm curious to hear what direction you take it.
Sure. I mean, it's such an interesting one because I mean, we're so in it. We know that it reduce costs. But the biggest thing in this type of environment is that business leaders don't want risk. Your executive team, they want to reduce risk in their business as much as they possibly can. They don't want to add to their fixed overhead costs unless they absolutely have to. So I would say a really great way to get buy-in is actually doing the math. If you're thinking about hiring an individual into that role full time, making sure you're adding on the burden, showing the full cost. And also we're seeing a lot of employers, they don't want to hire in provinces like Ontario, where employment law is so heavily leaning towards the employee. It just adds that extra level of risk if they have to exit someone. So I would say the biggest area to focus in on is the flexibility, the risk mitigation, and the cost. And I feel like that's my biased answer as
Okay.
well, but that's generally what resonates.
Dane, anything to add there?
I mean, I guess I'd look at this one more through a benefit. Like we're talking buy-in, correct? We're sort of executive level buy-in into
Yeah.
some concepts, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I think like, I'm going to look at this through a benefits lens. I think it's really important that whoever I'm working with at a specific company on the benefits, if it's not going to be the business owner themselves, but it's going to be someone, on the C-suite presumably, or the HR team, you got to really highlight the value. That's the bottom line. Like it has to be quantifiable. Is that always easy to do? No, but I think there are tools out there for making that a more doable process. But I think at the end of the day, just presenting it in the way that they want to see it and being able to really highlight what the value is going to be if something has got stale. I mean, that's just kind of the way I look at it. Just making sure you're aligned completely before you're presenting it and making sure everything's on the same page.
Just to add to what Nicole said, so the person dependence or independence, and I talked about this in the presentation, is pretty key from a risk perspective. In smaller organizations, you often have one person doing everything. Well, if that one person is doing the managing the benefits, the payroll, and doing the bookkeeping, there is a risk that that person, if something happens to them, they get sick, the whole organization is at risk. So I think that's an important one to consider. The other is, and I often get this, is why wouldn't I just hire a full-time person? It's easier to have a person sitting there in the office with me. And we talk about this particularly with fractional controller and CFO. So it'd be a similar conversation to what Nicole would be having with her clients. Ultimately, you can get 80% of the lift with about 20 to 30% of the time with a fractional resource, because in fractional, there is a heavy focus on outcomes and results. So you get a lot of the lift, a significant amount of the lift with far less time. So don't look at it at price. The second we have a conversation about how much does this cost me per hour, we're thinking about the wrong way of evaluating the success of fractional services. There's one more here, and I think this will have to be the last one. And this one is, first of all, thank you so much for all of this. You're most welcome. Okay, I have another HR benefits question. For fully remote teams, is there an evolving best practice around work from home requirements? Is this a benefit to the employee, i.e. no commute, or a cost to the employee, need to have home office space? Are there standards recompensation to employee for tech and internet? This is a really good question because I have also wondered the same thing and not been able to find an answer. Maybe Nicole, we'll start with you.
I feel like there's a lot in there, and maybe I'll follow up. I will loop in my team of HR experts, and I'll follow up on this in the follow-up email because there's a lot in
Great.
there. Yeah, let me have a think on that for a sec. Dane, I don't
Sure.
have anything to
I'll
contribute.
tackle one aspect of this. Yeah, I don't think I'd have a specific number that pops to mind, but one thing I'll say that companies are doing with wellness accounts, and again, wellness opens up a lot of flexibility for your staff because they're using it for things really the benefit plan doesn't cover. And again, it is a taxable benefit to the employee, but they're going to spend it, right? It's money that they're going to spend that stuff on things anyway. So if it's offered by the staff, by the company, they will use it. So one thing we're seeing is like taking a wellness account, but making it for a very specific thing, like whether it's mental health probably being the most obvious example. But in this case, let's say it's strictly for ergonomic work at home pieces, right? Like whether it's a desk or a chair or something like that. Here's $500 that goes towards that. And this is the account, it's $500, but you can only use it for XYZ. Those kind of things we're seeing more of, where it's a very a clear delineation in terms of how the funds can be used.
The last part of the question is, are there standards recompensation to employee for tech internet? And I think the question is, are there standards in general on this stuff? I think the answer is no. And I think
Yeah.
organizations are still figuring this out. Like we hear about this, RBC has now mandated 4 days back in the office, whereas other organizations are just like, full remote, not going back, right? I think this is an opportunity for smaller organizations, for leaders of small businesses, not-for-profit organizations, to really build something meaningful that weaves in with organizational culture, right? And I don't think there's a right answer. I think the key thing in all of this work from home, hybrid, or in office is consistency, and it's having a policy and a way of operating. And I think that it's critical that leaders manage that policy, but also that employees follow that policy. As long as you have that, I think it can lead to great success.
Yeah, well said.
All right, this has been so much fun. Thank you everyone for joining us. Nicole, Dane, it has been an absolute pleasure. Like we said, we will forward the recording of this presentation today, along with some follow-up materials and our contact details. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye for now.
Bye.